Honourable members, colleagues, good morning to all of you.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Roger.
Greetings, how are you?
Good. Good morning, members and our guests. The chair is struggling to connect. We're gonna start very soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Akagibele phezu kwesihlahla.
Mama Linga, soqala.
What's my name? Good morning, honorable members. The delegation
Recording
from,
in progress.
From the Minerals Council of South Africa. I see Mr. Roger Baxter.
Good morning, Chair.
And the team, all the interested parties present, and the staff of the committee. You will bear with us as Minkosa, that from time to time we will have some interactions and consultations with yourselves as a big employer body, especially on key issues of not just national interest, but of global interest. As we know that we have got a duty and a responsibility to ensure that we grow our economy. We play a major part in the creation of jobs, but also we play a major role to ensure that in the agenda to transform our economy, our society, we also ensure that we comply with our social obligation of ensuring that we develop our communities to the best of our capabilities. So from time to time, we all know that some of those will require that we must have a healthy workforce, we must have a healthy community within the mining jurisdictions. But generally, we need to ensure that we've got a healthy society. It is for that reason, not that there's something different, but it is for that reason that we could interact, and we needed to interact with yourselves to ensure that we fast track this process. We, from time to time, will make errors and mistakes simply because we are dealing with something that is a new phenomenon. We may not be ahead of time, we may be ahead of time, we may be behind time. The issue is that what do we do? As long as we're not standing, the only people who can never commit mistakes are those who are not doing anything and hoping that the world will automatically change itself. So it is for that reason that we are interacting with yourselves, as we feel that we have got a major role to play in ensuring that we respond with quickness, but also some degree of determination in ensuring that we mitigate against the pandemic. Today, honorable members, as I said, we're dealing with the Minerals Council, and then we'll deal with the minutes of the committee. That is the set of minutes of last week. But can I check, are there any apologies, Ayanda and Ari?
Yes, Chair. Good morning again, honorable members and our guest. I received an apology from Mr. Zungula. He's attending another meeting. And also the DG of the department, Advocate Mukwena. He's representing the department at the webinar. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, without, you'll bear with me at times. I'll have to, because there's a network challenge where I am. So we'll now go to Minerals Council of South Africa. I hope, let me apologize, Mr. Baxter. I don't like to say Mr. Baxter because some people may assume you are the coach of another team. But let me give it to you. I hope you are the one who's leading the delegation. If I made an error, you will correct me. Let me give it to you on your presentation for today.
So, Honourable Chairperson, thanks very much, and good morning to yourself and to all the honourable members of the committee and the select committee. Just to recognise everyone and send our greetings from the Minerals Council side. Also to the Chief Inspector of Mines and to the Director General of Mineral Resources, who I think are also going to be joining on the line. So, and then obviously all other colleagues from the Minerals Council side. So thanks very much, Chair, Honourable Chairperson, Mr. Luzipo. Just from our side, if I could start off the discussion just to say that we are going to be giving a presentation. Dr. Thuthula Balfour is going to be giving that presentation on our behalf. She is one of our unsung heroes in this process of fighting COVID, having played a real frontline role, not only in the National Advisory Committee on Vaccines, but also in terms of enabling the sector to try and play its role as best we can in getting shots into people's arms. But just to start off, if I can, to mention that we celebrated our second National Day of Women in Mining on the 19th of August. That was last week. What I can say, Honourable Chair, is that we have a key theme around generation equality, realising women's rights and for an equal future. And there is a whole bunch of material that we've got on the Minerals Council website around the progress made in this first year, particularly on the 7 foundational measures. And I know I can't go into the detail of it now, but I just wanted to make the point that we are now also developing a dashboard, getting our members to populate that dashboard, because you can't manage what you can't measure. And so we're trying to measure the progress we're making on the women in mining side, just as a starting point. Honourable Chair, also very quickly is to say at a particular point, it would be also good to come and engage you and brief the committee on the crime and security situation affecting the mining sector. And I think that'll be, you and I can maybe take that offline as a possible topic that we can come back and engage you on. Obviously, there have been some big impacts on the sector, particularly in terms of our ability to get bulk commodities to port and to major customers around the world, et cetera, but I won't go into the detail of that at the moment. So we're sitting at the moment from the Minerals Council side. The industry does employ 452,000 people. Just over 120,000 of our workers have been vaccinated, of which 13% are fully vaccinated, and the remaining 87% at least have had their first jab. And so we're really going as fast as we practically can. Obviously, up until the past month, the challenge was twofold. One was with the registration of primary and secondary vaccination sites. That's a process which does take a bit of time. But more importantly, was access to vaccines. But the access to the vaccines issue seems to have been solved through strong collaboration and partnership with the National Department of Health and working closely with government, including the provincial departments of health, in provinces like Limpopo as examples. So I think the shortage of vaccines per se is no longer the issue. It's now making sure that we've got all our sites up and running, and that we're doing as quickly as possible as many of our workforce as practically possible. Honourable Chairperson, I can say to you and members of the committee that if we had had the vaccines 3 months ago and the sites registered 3 months ago, we would have finished the workforce from a vaccination point of view, and would be busy in communities making sure that we could do our bit in the national interest to make sure that our communities are also vaccinated. So just to give you that assurance, the industry has been absolutely intricately involved in all the discussions with government right from January on the vaccines. And now that the restraint on vaccine supply has been lifted, we can now really get into the process of getting shots into people's arms, jabs into people's arms, for want of a better way of defining it. So, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, thanks very much. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Thuthula Balfour. I think that she has got also co-hosting rights to be able to share the presentation. What I would like to do is, we have a delegation of Minerals Council team members on the line. Alex Kumalo is our head of social performance. Alan Seacombe is our head of communications. And suddenly when Thuthula put that slide up, I can't see who else is on the line from our side, but Thuthula, that's no problem. And Dr. Balfour is on the line. Henk Langenhoven, our chief economist, is here. I know Tabela Chabana is here from the Minerals Council side. Nix Lesufi from the Minerals Council side, two of our senior executives. But let me not detract from our head of health, Dr. Thuthula Balfour. She is one of our leading lights in this particular process, and I'm going to leave her to give the presentation and then be looking forward to the conversation thereafter. So Thuthula, let me hand across to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roger, and good morning to you, Honourable Chairperson, and to the Honourable Members of Parliament, the senior officials from the department, and all protocol observed. Let me shut down the video. How do I do that now? I'm going to be talking about, the South African and mining industry epidemics and statistics very, very briefly, and chiefly our approach to the management of COVID, and how we also approached vaccination, and the challenges we had with the process, the delivery models that were adopted, and the status quo regarding the vaccination program and the way forward that we see. This is on the left showing the 3 waves of the South African epidemic, which, as we know, the second wave was very high, much higher than the first wave. And unfortunately, the third wave also has been as high as that second wave. And in fact, initially it had been thought that we would not have a bad third wave because a lot of people did have the infection in the second wave. But all of those predictions were premised on the fact that we do not get a new variant. And I'm sure most of you, and myself included, would have thought really if South Africa had a beta wave in that second wave, the chance that there would be a new variant, was not high. But unfortunately, we had the Delta variant, which drove the third wave. And as you can see, the third wave has also been, Gauteng was the first to come through. And then, in fact, it wasn't the first. It has been, according to the provinces, coming through differently, as we now have the coastal provinces still gripped in the third wave, which is why it is taking longer to come down. We are contrasting that with the mining waves on the right, which, as you can see, the second wave was very bad for the mining sector, similar to South Africa, but somehow the third wave does not seem to have been as high as the South African third wave. These are our statistics as of yesterday, where we had about 47,500 cases from the beginning of the epidemic, the pandemic in South Africa. And we also had 653 deaths. We still have significant numbers, not very high, but significant numbers of active cases, about 1,059 cases of people that are still active, because the epidemic in the mining sector has also not settled down. On the testing, you can see that the mining sector has been testing far higher than the South African rate and also higher than the global rate. Our approach as the Minerals Council from the beginning was a risk-based approach, and we moved very quickly in anticipation of the pandemic, and therefore from February of last year, even before there were the lockdowns, we did come through with a number of measures to assist our members to ensure that they were well prepared for the pandemic, and that included supplies, PPE, also with the DMRE, there was the requirement around the isolation sites and quarantine sites being made available by mining companies. And I have to say that really assisted a lot in ensuring that there was quick treatment, isolation for people that, were infected. And in fact, that is one of the key measures to break the cycle in terms of the transmission of the virus. We also have a very transparent approach. If you go on our website, you will find all our dashboards daily published there, including now the numbers of people that have been vaccinated. And so we believed that with transparency, there will be less myths that go around regarding COVID, and this would assist with the education of people so that ultimately, even with the vaccination program, they do accept the need to vaccinate, and that is something that we are working very hard on, which is vaccine acceptance. The approach we have is also very collaborative. As you will be aware, in the mining sector, we work in a tripartite manner, the state, employers, and organized labor. And from the beginning of the epidemic, organized labor has been an integral part of the response with meetings and consultations so that they also do provide inputs and suggestions to the approach or the response by the industry. And so even with the vaccination, they have supported the vaccination of employees, which is very critical because the organized labor is one of the key elements of leadership on the mines. And therefore, we all know that acceptance of vaccines has a lot to do with leaders, and whether it is the employer or it is the organized labor leadership, that has been very critical, and organized labor has come to the party. The vaccination program, we are part of B4SA at BUSA, and we from the beginning supported the national government-led rollout. You would ask, why, in fact, even ourselves, we wanted to see how we can just purchase our own vaccines because we know we've got the means, and there are companies that are multinational companies and could have had this access through various means. But due to very specific circumstances around the COVID pandemic, mainly being there was a global shortage of the vaccine. And number two, these vaccines are new. Some of them have got new technologies, and a lot of the vaccine manufacturers required governments to provide indemnity. I'm sure you saw in the papers how the Department of Health with Treasury had to sign certain agreements, which would therefore mean that the government is responsible, and there was the setting up by the government of a fund for anyone who has adverse effects from the vaccine. So these are all the elements or the issues that made it not quite possible for companies to just go ahead and purchase. But we have worked very well with the department and through the B4SA in what we call saving lives and saving livelihoods, because we believe that we all need to work very efficiently to ensure that as many people are vaccinated as possible so that this economy can really open up and we can get back the jobs that we have lost through the epidemic. This is just the flow of how our collaboration went. As you may see, we started in February to collaborate with B4SA regarding the vaccination work stream. But it's actually on the 24th of May that the first vaccine was administered by a mining company. And this illustrates, that the journey was not an easy one. We all know the country started with the healthcare workers, which was crucial because they had to be vaccinated to make sure that when there's another wave, then they are fairly immune to the virus. And this has worked very well. There are very few health workers who have died in this. Vaccinated, health workers, there are very few, if any, that have died during this third wave. Whereas with the other waves, there were a number, hundreds of health workers that died due to the epidemic. We then moved from health workers as a country to various sectors, and we were prioritized under the workplace sites. And we, as I said, ultimately had the first site vaccinate in May on the 24th. And as of the 20th of August, we had about 51 workplace vaccination sites in the mining industry that were live. So although it took long up to May, but the momentum really increased. And part of that was mainly due to the support that the Minerals Council put into the process. When we come to the challenges, I will just show how a lot of companies really needed assistance to get through all of the steps they had to follow to be approved as vaccination sites. So these are the challenges. When you say, we started in February to engage, we thought by March we would also be vaccinating, but it was only in May that the first site was registered and the full, large numbers of companies vaccinating was in July. And this is because, number one, the country had to, segment, and hospitals had to be part of the first lot because health workers had to be vaccinated. So they had to be attended to, assisted to register. And the next was pharmacies, because pharmacies have a wide geographic spread and would be able to, vaccinate a lot of people. And so the workplace sites were further down the line in terms of activation. And once they were activated, the process followed is very bureaucratic. It's a 10-step process, and a lot of companies couldn't complete that process within a month. It's more like 2 months that they would take to complete that process. And as I said, we actually had dedicated resources to assist our companies. And that's why the mining sites managed to, get on board or go online earlier than many of the other workplace sites. But actually what we then did in the end was to support the rest of B4SA, the rest of business, to get all of the sites on board. And most of this has been fairly successful. There were capacity constraints, in processing of the workplace sites. And there were also some idiosyncrasies around the registration, which were not suited for workplaces. Things like practice numbers. Workplaces don't have practice numbers, similar to doctors or to pharmacies. And so a special dispensation had to be put in place for temporary practice numbers. That also took time to be put in place. There were Section 22A15 licenses, which are the pharmacy licenses that not all companies had, and there were very complicated reimbursement mechanisms. But I have to say that for all of these, there were solutions. The department, there were weekly and more, twice weekly meetings. And so most of these ultimately were sorted out. There were also the issues of efficiency considerations, the balancing companies had to do. If, for instance, you had a few, less than 4,000 employees, and maybe I can say at this stage that at BUSA, it was decided before SA, it was decided for efficiency purposes, let's concentrate on companies with 4,000 and more employees. And so the ones which had less than 4,000, there were other models that were proposed for them. But even beyond that, when you had 4,000 employees, there's a big difference between having 4,000 and 20,000 employees, because the infrastructure you put in place, the cost benefits of, are different because of the scale. And so things like, are we allowed to vaccinate dependents and communities? there was a lot of uncertainty at some stages, and it would make it difficult because, for instance, if you knew that I'm going to vaccinate employees and communities, it means the infrastructure I'm putting in place, I'm going to get, it's going to be used efficiently. And these were some of the things, therefore, that made the sites not to come on board quickly because there were these considerations. We, however, had special conditions that were provided, which make life easier for workplaces. These are things like bulk uploading for employees, and so they don't need to register individually. And the age categories, the Department of Health allowed us to move ahead with vaccinating everyone ahead of the general population. And again, now they have allowed for dependents and for communities to be vaccinated. These are the models that are available. The big companies, it's a one-site model where it is in your company and your employees are vaccinated there. The next one is where there's clustering of sites, and so it's a shared site among a number of companies. The third one is a site servicing. So it's similar to the one-site model, but it's open to other companies. And we find this in the Rustenburg area, for instance, where a number of companies go to this one site where the vaccination is done. A number of, another option, which is also popular and has proved to work very efficiently, is that of third-party service providers. These are maybe an occupational health service provider, a pharmacy, or other type of service provider. But what they do is they come to your site to vaccinate your employees, and this has worked very well. The other one, which is not here, is working with the Department of Health, and that has proved to be quite a success too, where in mining provinces like Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northern Cape, Free State to some extent, those departments of health have supported mining companies and other workplaces to ensure that people are vaccinated. And I think it's a great show of collaboration. And of course, the expectation is that if the department has assisted, then the companies also assist the department when it comes to vaccinating the general population. These are our sites thus far, just to say that we've got 74 sites in total, and out of those, 51 are using currently online and using the one site model. We have 8 which are working towards being, there's clustering and using another site, and then 3, let me check. There are 11 actually are working with the Department of Health, as I described, where they are then their data goes to the Department of Health. So the clustering is the 3, and the 8 are awaiting approval and have various models in place. And as I gave you the latest statistics, we are on about 120,000 really people that have been vaccinated. And so that's more than 20% of our employees. The way forward, we see that, as has been said, we were in a vaccine-constrained environment. That is no longer the case. There's a lot of vaccines. We also have most of the sites now functional. And so what we see as important is to really fast-track the vaccination rate. And we have put a target of 80% of employees need to be vaccinated. And we are in August now, 25th. I'm sure by end of September, we should have made a great progress in that sphere of, getting to this target. We have companies that have vaccinated over 80% of employees. A few others, again, are over 50%. So we see it as possible. And, sometimes it's not even small companies where you can say, well, it was 20 people, so 80% or 100% is easy to get to. We're talking about big companies which within 6 weeks have managed to vaccinate more than 50% of employees. And so it's truly possible for us to really ramp up. We also are similar to the department, looking at the issue of improving education so that there is vaccine acceptance, because you will always find pockets of resistance to vaccination, whether it's people who are really not truly having all of the education or the anti-vaxxers. Our focus is on the people that need education, for them to be assured and for their fears to be allayed so that they do get the vaccine. The anti-vaxxers, we do not concentrate on them because they tend to be fundamentalist in how they approach this, and your chances of success with them are very limited, and it tends to be very educated people that have access to the internet and all of these other materials that float around on, preaching vaccination. We also, there are a few companies which are already, vaccinating in the communities, but definitely we would like that we finalize our employees so that we can move full-time to supporting the peri-mining communities. We are supporting government efforts on promoting vaccination, and Before SA has issued a statement where they are saying that they will be working on a campaign with the Department of Health to support vaccination, and we will be fully aligned with that effort. We will also continue to motivate that as much as people have been vaccinated, they must still maintain the non-pharmaceutical measures, which are the masks, the social distancing, and all of the other preventive measures. And in fact, in countries where people became lax and they thought, okay, we're vaccinated, we can take off our masks, they have had a very bad experience of rising cases, although maybe the hospitalizations and deaths were not high, but they did have a lot of cases. So the vaccination does not mean you must then stop using your mask. This is my last slide, just to show how our leadership has come through in support of vaccination. This is the campaign, Choose Vaccination, and most of the faces here are the CEOs from the mining companies. As I said, they were leading from the front, and they will continue to do that because more people need to be encouraged to vaccinate. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thuthula, thanks for that. Before we hand back to the chair, just to add an additional comment, I think certainly from the Minerals Council side, Honourable Chairperson, Honourable Members, we've had this process called #WeChooseVaccination, as Dr. Balfour said. But what we've also been doing is we've got a set of posters on the Minerals Council website written in 4 different languages about the fact that vaccinations really work. And just to highlight the point that in the 3rd wave in the UK, they are finding that the amount of hospitalizations, despite the fact that they're now dealing with the Delta variant, is much lower than in the 2nd wave. So it's 20% in my understanding of the hospitalizations are 20% of the equivalent amount of what they had in the 2nd wave. So just showing that vaccinations really work. In the USA, the evidence coming through is also quite clear that a significant number of the people that are being hospitalized, 94% of them or something like that, with COVID, have not been vaccinated. So it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated, mostly, in other countries. So the vaccines work, and we've been trying to get the message out through our own campaigns and through this whole process around #WeChooseVaccination, and particularly working with our trade union partners. They are partners in this particular process. They've also been champing at the bit to get the vaccination process working as quickly as possible. We want to get as many of our workforce vaccinated as quickly as possible, and then also at the community level. And so I'm really pleased that government have now agreed in the process that we can start engaging and vaccinating in our communities and peri-community areas. So I think that's really a big step in the right direction. My last comment is that one of the messages that we've been giving out there is that as quickly as the vaccines were developed, the vaccines do work. The side effects are very small. The chances of thrombosis, for example, are 0.000084, which is very small, but the chances of dying of COVID, if you haven't been properly vaccinated, obviously are much higher. So vaccinations work, and we need to just continue with the campaign of getting shots in arms and getting jabs in arms and really working together to open up the economy, because this is how we can do so. And if you look at my absolute last comment is just, if you look at what's happening at the global level, if we look at China's vaccinated more than 1 billion people, and their economy is expected to grow at over 8% this year. The United States has vaccinated more than 300 million people, and their economy is expected to grow at something like 6.5% to 7% this year. Other advanced economies are growing at about 5% this year, so quite a big bounce back. And it's a story of fiscal stimulus, and it's also a story of vaccines. And so in the countries that have been able to get the vaccination process done quickly, they've opened up a lot quicker. And the fiscal stimulus side is obviously those countries that have continued being able to provide fiscal stimulus to keep things going, at least while they try to reopen their economies. In emerging economies where the access to the vaccines has been less, and I'm talking about emerging economies outside of China, the growth rates are expected to be about 4% this year, which is much lower than China's or what you would expect in emerging economies. And again, it's a story of vaccines and the inability to deliver fiscal stimulus because of the constrained fiscal circumstances that many of those countries face. And then the last category, the fourth category, is low-income countries where very limited access to vaccines and obviously no access to the ability to do any sort of fiscal stimulus. And their growth rates are like 2-3%, which is extremely low. So they'll recover at a far slower pace. So I just make that comment that vaccines are one of our key tickets towards opening up their economy and getting our economy growing at a much faster pace. And then obviously from a business side, we've been talking about structural and institutional reforms, but that's a topic for another day. So Honourable Chairperson, Mr. Luzipo, let me hand back to you, and we look forward to the questions, comments from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Roger. I can see you do have some few political lectures. Dr. Balfour says all protocol observed. Welcome to the world of diplomats. So they say. Thank you very much, and thanks to Dr. Balfour for the presentation. I will come later on some of the issues that from where I'm sitting as a chair. But let me give to, at least you have been a traditional visitor to this committee. You are not new. You know how the procedure works. Is there any questions of clarity, honorable members? Any hands? I see the hand of Honorable Mahlaule. Any other hand? I see the hand of Honorable Malinga. Any hand? I guess there's no other hand. Oh, I see the hand of Honorable Madogwe. Can I do it like this? It will be Honorable Malinga. Nyanga yo mama no muntu bepresenta umama. It will be Honorable Malinga, Honorable Madogwe, then Honorable Mahlaule. After Honorable Madogwe, I will come in after Honorable Mahlaule.
And Chair, my hand is up as well.
Oh, I didn't see your hand. Then after Honorable Langa, I'll come in after Honorable Langa. Eyokusiza lento welanga yokuthi uvesane ukhanyise TV le yakho ngikubone ngoba engathi ayisandla sakho asiphakami ngempela is refusing. Okay.
Maybe Chair, the optometrist will do for you as well.
Malinga, I will come after Honorable Langa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Greetings to yourself, members of the Portfolio Committee, the Ministry, and our guest, also our support staff and media people on the platform. Chairperson, allow me not to open my video. I'm happy today you can feel the network challenges that I always complain about. And now it's your turn. Chair, let me welcome the presentation by Minkosa, which is very encouraging. I really want to applaud what I think it's Mr. Roger, their dashboard on women mining. I hope it's not just going to be a dashboard. They are going to really do well in terms of women in mining. Also, Chair, applaud the 120,000 employees vaccinated so far, but I want to know the 120,000 from how many that have been vaccinated or ought to be vaccinated, Chair. Chairperson, on their way forward slides, I saw that they intend to vaccinate about 80% of the employees. I did not catch the time frame. Maybe if I can be furnished with that, Chairperson. And I think it's the second or third bullet where they say they will improve vaccine acceptance by employees. How do they intend to do that? Also, Chair, I am comforted by bullet 3 on the way forward, Chairperson, in terms of these vaccines. Chair, I did not catch or hear anything as when Dr. Thuthula was presenting in terms of the children of the deceased mine workers. Are there any plans to vaccinate them, the deceased children and families, and in terms of support, in terms of education, whereby a breadwinner or a miner has passed away and children still have to go to school? Do they have any plans in terms of that? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will withdraw. I am covered in some of the questions that I wanted to ask.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sorry. Greetings to yourself, greetings to my colleagues, greetings to Minkosa, led by Mr. Roger Baxter. And let me welcome the presentation, very short and precise. I'll be wasting the committee's time if I said my questions would solely arise from some level of shortage of information from the presentation. I just want to enter from a political angle. Mr. Roger, you know, I have a friend who has a son who studies in China, and they were due to go back to China, and they were told that they can't go back to China without vaccinating. That was the first thing. The second one was that even if they were to be vaccinated in South Africa, China would not accept the vaccinations that are in South Africa. As a result, they had to go to Zimbabwe because Zimbabwe has the Chinese vaccination. Now, I'm saying that that's some politics that is brewing all around the world about vaccinations and the human rights of those who have vaccinated vis-a-vis the human rights of those who may not want to vaccinate. And with the nature of your sector, there would be such things where others would feel uncomfortable being around those that have not vaccinated because they have vaccinated. And the protection of both rights would come in very important, and the manner in which you would go about that. Now, I'm saying it's politics that probably have not reached the sector as yet, but it will come. How do you think you'll handle that situation when it comes? And I know the position of our government, but I'm just saying it's a reality that is coming to our sectors. Another example would be that of game. I'm not sure whether it was a real advert where they were advertising that if you are fully vaccinated, you get 10% of a discount of everything that is in the stores and all of it. So I'm saying, whether real or imaginative, the politics around that is coming to each sector. How are you going to handle, or how are you handling such a debate so far? Thank you.
Greetings to you, Chair, honorable members, DMRE, Minkosa, and supporting staff. Let me also welcome the presentation. Mine is just a short one. It's just a clarity-seeking question, because I could pick up that, or rather see that KZN and Eastern Cape is not reflecting on the vaccination status slide. And maybe I'm missing some data, but if I'm not mistaken, we do have mining operations in both, these provinces, even though they are not at the magnitude with the likes of your Mpumalangas and your Northwest. So can you kindly provide clarity around that? Thank you very much, Chair.
So, we inclusion in Natsingala. I have a problem with something that keeps on popping when I'm supposed to press the unmute button. Honorable, oh, you may be honorable anyway. There's nothing wrong, Mr. Roger. There are the questions, except to say the potential is very high. I know they might come with that answer, blah. Potential is very high that they may not have members in those two provinces by virtue of the size, but I'm sure they may be able to give us an answer, or whether they do such sites according to the membership they have, or is it according to the needs as they present themselves in those areas. Maybe before I give in to Mr. Roger, it might be important to raise those issues. And also, to what extent is the intervention with regards the labor sending areas that have dominated our space. But let me give you Mr. Roger.
Honourable Chairperson, thanks very much. Let's take the questions as in sequential order, if that's okay. And thanks very much to the members for those particular questions. So Honourable Malinga, just to highlight, yes, we are implementing the Women in Mining dashboard, and the 7 foundational measures have also been quite interesting, and I know Dr. Balfour can maybe make a few comments on that. On the 120,000 vaccines done so far, we have a total labour force of 452,000 employees as a whole. So, at this particular stage, we're looking at roughly 30% of our labour force have been vaccinated so far. But we want to get up to that 80% as quickly as we can before the end of September. So there's a month to go, and that'll be at least getting everyone to have had their first jabs. Obviously, there is a time intervention that comes in where the second jab, if it's the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccination, for example, we do have to wait for 42 days between the vaccinations, but we'll follow up on that. But maybe let me ask Dr. Balfour to come in here. She's right in sync with all the different numbers, and that's specifically focused on this question around how we're improving vaccine acceptance. And then I'll come back in and answer, I hope, the children of deceased workers and how we're managing that particular process with the help of the colleagues. So one other quick comment before Dr. Balfour comes in is I failed to introduce Aubrey Ramawa. Aubrey is our senior person down in Parliament. And I know the Honourable Chairperson and members of the committee know him well, and but he's also part of the delegation from the Minerals Council side. So let me stop there, ask Dr. Balfour to come in and help answer that question, and any of my other colleagues who want to answer that question from Honourable Malinga. Thuthula?
Thank you, Roger. And the question from Honourable Malinga, I think there was the issue of the dashboard, the commending, we welcome that, and we will be reporting starting from September, and it means at least on an annual basis we'll be able to report on progress. On the improving vaccine acceptance, most of this is through education. We have regular meetings of the health people. We also have meetings of communications people, because the health people give the message, but the communications people are crucial in crafting how that message should be taken to the people. And so there is a lot of education of employees, and we also use leaders. The leadership, has a big impact. And so, as I said, both the CEOs and senior executives and also the organized labor leaders in the companies are the ones who lead on, for instance, making sure that they publicize themselves being vaccinated. And then, in fact, in some companies, when they started initially, they could see that people are hanging back. They wanted to see what happens to those who get vaccinated before they then, feel comfortable to vaccinate. So it is all of those mechanisms. And as I said, we are now going to form part of the DOH campaign that will be coming up with the BUSA, where there will be a campaign to really increase vaccine acceptance in the country. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Thuthula. And then just obviously on the children of deceased workers from the COVID pandemic, the companies have operating in place various group schemes that they use, and those group schemes obviously do provide support to families post those particular types of events. Obviously, we can't vaccinate the children yet unless they're over the age of 18, and that's that's just because we're obviously following national policy. But when we are able to, from a national policy perspective, vaccinate children younger than 18 or youngsters younger than 18, I wouldn't call them children, we'll obviously get involved in that particular process. But so just to make the comment that they certainly are covered in that particular process, and we do have companies with their own individual schemes at the same time. Honourable Madokwe She withdrew her question. So thanks for that. Let me just go to Honorable Mashwale. Thanks very much for the question. Difficult one. It is a political angle, and we don't tend to dabble too much in the politics of these particular issues. But I think there's no doubt that at the global level, there is a bit of a discussion taking place around vaccine passports, that you just simply can't travel unless you have been vaccinated with a recognized vaccine. So there are human rights particular challenges that will come into this, where you've got some people that don't want to take vaccines, some people that potentially can't take a vaccine, although I'm not sure in exactly what circumstances that may occur. You know, from our particular side, we obviously are using vaccines which are approved by the National Department of Health through the Medicine Health Product Regulator. So, and we'll continue to do so and follow those particular protocols, and we hope that that'll continue to enable us to open it up. But I know the question you're asking, you know, how will we handle this? We'll follow government's protocols is the best way to answer it. We cannot force all workers to be vaccinated, but there will be potential restrictions on workers, you know, in some instances where, you know, for example, accessing particular areas, etc. And we're not saying in the mining sector side, but that's a debate that's going to take place. And from our particular side, we're just trying to encourage everyone as much as possible to get vaccinated, because it's just going to make the whole process very much easier from an opening the economy perspective. If I can shift to Honorable Langa, thanks very much for the presentation. Yes, you are right. In KZN and the Eastern Cape, very little large-scale mining activity takes place. There is some activity. It's not, you know, it's not into the 20, 30, 40,000 number of workers. Remember that there are in KZN certain mining operations that have been shut since June. For example, the Richards Bay Minerals facility. Obviously, we heard the very good news yesterday that those facilities are going to be reopening quite soon, and they will obviously then start getting into the process straight away of vaccinating employees as quickly as they possibly can, and then obviously surrounding communities. So, but it's just simply it's a numbers side. You know, if you look at Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Northern Cape, obviously that's predominantly and Mpumalanga where the bulk of mining employees, and we're focusing on mining employees obviously as our critical urgent primary focus. And then obviously we now have been given the green light to start looking at communities, and some of the companies are already starting to vaccinate the communities. So I hope that answers that particular question. It's just simply a numbers game. Honorable Chairperson Luzipo, thanks very much for your question. Yes, I mean they're obviously what we've been focusing on is existing employees in existing sites. The Eastern Cape, for example, is a major labor sending area for us. What I'm going to ask is Dr. Balfour and Tebello to also maybe just come in here, just to give us, you know, we obviously have focused on our campaigns, haven't been focused on the vaccine side. It's been more on critical aid into those provinces, both from a food aid perspective, but also from a oxygen and other during the second pandemic, the second wave of the pandemic. But let me ask Dr. Balfour to come in here if there's any comment she has on what we're doing, you know, in labor sending provinces. Thuthula, do you want to come in here, please?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have much to add besides what we were doing in the second wave. It's a pity now Mr. Lesufi is not here, so I don't know if Tebello remembers, because it did sound like there is some work going on. It's more communication and looking at what support can be provided if there is any requested. Thank you, Chair.
Tebello, do you want to come in here?
Thank you, Roger. Yeah, just to maybe elaborate. Good morning, honourable members. You know, I think one must always remember that We've always had a program as the Minerals Council with relating to ex-mine workers, and they're dependent. I mean, that Mr. Lusufi can always give you a lot more detail on that, and that actually continues to exist. And it's certainly something that we can certainly brief the portfolio committee on, because it is much broader than you know, say a COVID-related intervention, and certainly might require a day or a session on its own, because it is quite important. But secondly, I mean, I think the members, honourable members, always know that mining companies are very active, as it is, in their labour sending areas through SLPs and the like. So the initiatives that they implement not only relate to activities in the shadow of the headgear, but quite importantly, also relating to labour sending areas. So the mines themselves have, again, an extensive reach and a lot of activities, whether educational, whether social development, and so forth, you know, in those labour sending areas. And again, you know, it would be an absolute pleasure to try to put before the portfolio committee the extensive work that is happening in these SLPs, whether they be within the mining communities or in those labour sending areas. And then lastly, just to touch on and just to confirm what Mr. Baxter said there, we've also, as the mining industry, thought, you know, in terms of our interventions to combating COVID, we can't just be taking action where the mines are taking place, because clearly there it's a lot easier because we've got operations. It's easier to put up the facilities as we've done relating to quarantine or putting up hospital beds and the like, prevention measures and all of that. But as Mr. Baxter said, I mean, we had quite a good intervention during the second wave, where the Eastern Cape hospitals were in dire need of oxygen, and you know, I think it was to the sum of about 4.7 million that was spent on oxygen and oxygen-related products for the Eastern Cape hospitals, and that was really primarily as a result of the fact that, you know, the Eastern Cape is one of those provinces that is impacted by mining and yet has no mining operations per se. And the CEOs of the various companies in the Minerals Council felt it really was a moral obligation to also be lending a hand in the Eastern Cape when it was in a particularly dire situation. So, you know, I think really as and when the need arises, the mining companies do take action. That's all I can add. Roger, just to mention the issue of a vaccine passport, maybe you haven't touched on, and because that came up a little bit. I don't know if you want to touch on that.
Okay, and on the vaccine passport side, do you want to make any comments there, Thubela?
No, Roger, I don't really have the official position here, but clearly it's not just China having concerns with those that are vaccinated in SA with a different virus. There is a bit of a challenge in other countries where I do believe, though, but I think Dr. Balfour would have to come in here. I'm not sure where we are as a country with getting a vaccine passport system, so that when one is traveling, one's vaccination can be authenticated. But I think I'd hope Dr. Balfour might have something to add on that. Nothing else from me, Roger.
Thubela, thanks. Let's go back to Dr. Balfour. Thuthula, can you just give us any sense from the Vaccine Advisory Committee or otherwise on any discussions on vaccine passports or any thinking on it?
Thank you. Honorable Mahlau's question, he said, was a political one. And that is very true. You know, in South Africa, we are not at that stage at all of talking about vaccine passports in terms of going out. And part of it would be due to the fact that it's only now that vaccines are truly freely available, and therefore, and people have all been allowed to vaccinate. And I think it will only be in time that maybe that consideration would be given. But at the moment, there is nothing in South Africa. It is a very contentious issue, the question of vaccine passports. As has been said, it also touches on human rights. And it's even worse if then countries say, no, but we don't want this vaccine, we want that one, because now it's advancing, you know, economic interests of particular countries. So the quick answer is we are not there yet, Chair. Thank you.
So, Honourable Chairperson, a couple. I hope we've been able to answer some of the questions, but I, maybe make the last comment is that, we certainly also, anticipate that as we get through this pandemic, as we get the economy opened, as hopefully we get a lot more people in the country vaccinated, that we're going to probably have in place something like the regular flu shot, as a booster on an annual basis is probably the way that it'll work going forward. There'll be enough of a country level immunity that will be created in the process. And I think we all recognize that the more that people are vaccinated, the less there is transmission. Transmission can still take place. So Dr. Balfour is absolutely right that we still have to use the non-pharmaceutical interventions through mask wearing, social distancing, sanitizing hands, etc. But what's important about it is that over time, as that level of overall country level immunity is raised over time, it enables things to open up more, and then you get into doing booster vaccinations every year, pretty much like you have on a flu jab basis, which then enables us to manage the pandemic in that particular way. So a few thoughts from our side. Honourable Chairperson, let me hand back to you and honourable members of the committee. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Roger Baxter and your team. I can see there are no follow-ups, but let's hope now with the over 80, the 18s up to no limit. In athletics, they were to say the under 18s is the only ones that are not in the category and they don't fall on your scope. The challenge that you have raised initially of age management, I'm definitely sure is no longer there now. Age categorization. So probably the pace is gonna be much higher than before. We expect that you may cover a much larger scope with the fact that I wouldn't say there's no limitation. It's only from 18 upwards. I see people say 18 to 34. It's 18 to upwards. Any of the person who's 18 and above now is allowed to go through that process. And I think it will be of great assistance. But like you say, also, we hope that there'll be more of the education and awareness that will continue to be made, regardless of the pharmaceutical considerations like vaccines and so forth, but the non-pharmaceutical programs will have to kick in, including awareness on how people should prepare and ready themselves even before they go for vaccination. I think that those are the issues that we look forward. And with a healthy workforce, most definitely productivity is a potential order of the day, which at the end of the day, looking at the stats, they are not looking good that we saw yesterday with regards to the crisis of unemployment. And it means we must do everything in our power. Thank you very much, Mr. Roger. You are always a call away for accepting our invitation, but also we might be sending an invitation soon just to ready yourself to get your views with regards to the risks, threats, and challenges in the mining industry that we might, especially the physical experiences, whether with regards to illegal mining, with regards to syndicates, with regards to matters that relates to extortions, and all those things that are putting a threat on the horizon as we seek to improve. Because we have seen some of the mines being closed. We've seen in cases on the logistic fields, trucks being banned. We've seen infrastructure or equipment being burnt and damaged at the workplace. So we'll come back to you and share, to have a share with yourselves on the experiences and what we think could be done to improve the situation. Thank you very much, Mr. Roger and your team. Continue to work. Yes, I will look forward to the day we talk about the issue of the social labor plan as integrated part of the work that is being done in the fight against the pandemic. I think it's one of the things that we will really appreciate going forward. Thank you very much. Honorable members, can we now go to the minutes? You are released, Mr. Roger.
Honorable Chair, sir, thank you.
As part of the public, you are also allowed if you want to stay, but I know you are handling very serious matters of business. Always time is of concern.
Honorable Chair, so thank you to you and your and the honorable members of the committee. Just want to make one comment. I think it's been quite remarkable to see the level of cooperation taking place between government, the DMRE, National Department of Health, the trade unions, and ourselves. And so it's important just to demonstrate that when there is a crisis of this nature, we can really partner and cooperate very effectively. But I think we shouldn't wait until crisis times to do that. We need to continue to do that to build the sector to realize its potential. So we look forward to coming back to you and presenting on the security situation and what we think can be done to help improve it. So, Honourable Chairperson, thanks very much from my team. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Honourable members, can we now go to the minutes? Let me check something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Page 1, number 1 on the attendance. I think there's not much. Point 1, array. Point 2. Point 3, point 4, point 5, point 6.
Chair.
Is that Honorable Masaule?
Yes, Chair. On discussion 6, point number 7, if you look at what is said in point 6, and all of a sudden there's a DMRE that stated that those involved in drafting of tender IT system will not be participating in the bidding process. I'm lost whether which IT system that they are referring to. There's no link between that sentence and what I think would be a SAMRAD. I don't know whether is that what we're talking about or what. Then on point number 8, it should, the DMRE stated that in an international, yeah, I think you got it. It's not bidding, it's bidding. Thank you, Chair.
Ari?
Yes, Chair.
Yes. That's what I thought was the case. It was participation on the SAMRAD system, new procurement. Is it a SAMRAT or a new cadastral system? I'm just asking.
We'll confirm that, Chair, the correct wording.
It's, excuse me, Mr. Chair, this is absolutely vital in terms of the system. I would prefer the term cadastral, but if the SAMRAD is more accurate, it has implications.
No, the reason is that we are looking at a new system. I'm not sure whether that system will still be called SAMRAD. What if they come with something completely new? With a new terminology.
That's my point, Mr. Chair. That's my point, Mr. Chair. If it is a new SAMRAD system, it's going to have a bad reputation from the start. So it's quite important that we know whether this is what they intend or not.
I'll confirm with the department, Chair. I'll confirm with the department. What is it, the new SAMRAD system or what?
No, we rather, if that is the case, we rather take out and remain with the new IT system. To the best of my knowledge, they are looking at a different system from SAMRAD. But if they bring in some, let me put it this way. It was never presented as if it's an improvement of the SAMRAD system. I will leave the part of what Honorable Remit will be that's why I said it will be a discussion that it must demonstrate how different it is and why it is more accurate and more efficient and proper compared to the one that we have. I think let's just say a new IT licensing system.
Yeah.
And we leave it at that. Okay. Any matter? Any mover with the amendment?
Chair.
Hello?
Yes, Chair. It's Honorable Langa. On your attendance by committee members there.
Yes.
Right. You can see you have your ANC grouped, you have your DA grouped, but what happened to us there? You grouped us with IFP, with Professor Msiman.
Oh, no, it will be corrected. Maybe it's because you are the only two who have got who have got an F letter. Will be corrected. It's supposed to be under.
No, those are the apologies, Chair.
Oh yes, it's correct. It's apologies. In fact, your line, Ari, next time must go up to the end. From the beginning, where the yes.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Chair.
No, it's apologies. Babla.
Bese ngithi sesiyahlanganiswa ne-IFP.
The only person who should be complaining is Mama Dobe. Nina nibambe inhlanganiso benizokuhlanganiswa ngwabakhaya.
Hayibo. Abakhaya subscribe to one ideology.
Okay, any move of the minutes?
I move with the amendments, Chair.
Okay, any second?
Comrade Chair, I second with the amendments as stated by Honorable Malinga.
Okay. Any additional Matters arising. Can I share on the ARI?
I'm listening,
On
Chair.
the gas amendment bill, what were given a task, we will send members in writing, isn't it? They're supposed to get it in writing, but we can just say for now there are only two provinces that we may not be able to visit. It's the Northern Cape, ne? And what?
No, Chair, it's Limpopo.
It's Limpopo and Mpumalanga.
And no, we are visiting Mpumalanga. It's Limpopo and Northwest.
Northwest.
Okay. Yes, we will come back to members. There are provinces that we might, if approved by the House Chairperson, attend instead of one, have to go to 3 areas per province. And some we might have to go 2 per province. But we will send the proposed program if it is approved for the visits to provinces. As soon as the House Chair approves it, we will send it to members of the committee. We also, and will deal with that, it will take into consideration what we are trying to deal with, the amended, shortened program of Parliament. And hopefully we will be approved to undertake if that program is what we looked at. We just saw some gaps on the program. But if it is what we think it is, we might have to work even during the period where Parliament is not in session. I think that's what we can say for now. But we have sent it for the House Chair for approval, and then we'll bring it back to the committee as soon as it is done, because we think it will assist us as we plan. There is potential that we may even have to work beyond the normal working hours that we know with regards to the oral submissions. Is there any other matter, honorable members? Or should we say I'm not sure at what point, because it should not lose us. We shouldn't leave open-ended the issue of the licensing regime. Maybe we must take it again, look at it, progress at the beginning of the year 2022, if members agree with us. Get progress. Will that be okay?
Which item are we in?
No, on matters arising, I'm saying, you remember we're dealing with the licensing regime. I'm saying with regards to the new IT system on licensing, especially in mining, shouldn't we then say we will look at the progress made by early next year in the first quarter of 2022?
Chair, it is part of the resolutions in the next minutes.
Oh, okay. I'm forward, ne? Yeah. Okay, can we now go to the next set of minutes? Attendance, 1. Sorry. Any point 1 and point 2, point 3.
Arima's correct, Mulawuzi, Chair. It's not Malawuzi. Yes. MU, it's supposed to be MU.
Okay. It is number 3. Okay. Okay. Any move of the minutes?
I move, Chairperson.
You know,
I say I move.
is that Honorable Kula?
No, it's Honorable Belankulu.
Oh, okay, Honorable Bilankulu moves. Any seconder?
I second, Chair.
Okay. Being the cases, may any matters arising? No matters arising. It means
Chair,
Babu Machauli.
maybe the point that you wanted to raise around the monitoring of the licensing regime, I'm not sure whether you wanted to give it a date or what.
No, I didn't want to put a date. I just was suggesting, shouldn't we, so that it doesn't get lost on the agenda, shouldn't we agree that it must be, we must expect a progress report in the first quarter of the year 2022?
Okay, Chair.
Okay, if the means silence is by agreement.
Chairperson, in the last bullet on the resolution, the list that is supposed to be submitted by NERSA, we did not put a time frame there. I'm not sure whether they have. Can I reflight it again? The last minute that's adopted now. Yes, that bullet, Chair, whether Secretariat has received the names of private businesses to whom they have approved, because I think we wouldn't have made this resolution if it was not important to the committee.
Can we say Ari and Ayanda? Can we bring the report in the next meeting on Tuesday?
That's fine, Chair.
Okay, Chair.
If there is no response, we will come, Honorable Malinga, and say there's no response. If the response says they need so much time to prepare that information, we will come back to the comment. If it's agreed, is there then any other matter? In the absence of any other matter, can I then confirm and declare that the meeting stands adjourned until next week, Tuesday?
You can share your,
You are released.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Mpumalanga
Chair.
is the first one.
Thanks, Chair.
you can share your breakfast.
Tugana nosihlalo.
We